Few certainties in life are more guaranteed than the Dolphins suffering a catastrophic injury in prime time, and that it's always good to beat the Jets. Welcome to Club Dub.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting, author of Touchdown Miami on Substack, NFL staff writer for A to Z Sports. Want to give a special welcome and shout out to our everydayers because it is your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it. Here on the Locked On Network, today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by FanDuel. And right now, new customers can bet $5, and if that bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Welcome, everyone, for the first time in 2025. The Club Dub. Drinks are in the back. Make yourselves cozy. It's always nice to get a win, especially when it comes against the New York Jets. Now, this was a costly win for the Dolphins with Tyreek Hill's injury, and we're going to talk about that at the end of the show. But I want to talk about the performance of both sides of the ball first, because this was a unique game is probably the way to phrase it, where the Dolphins were opportunistic with turnovers. The Dolphins had success early with scoring on four of their first 5 possessions. The Dolphins scored points, and it kind of felt like you're in the back 20 minutes and the game's in hand or under control, but the Jets had the success that they had running the ball, and you knew that was a concern coming in with what the Jets had offensively, and sure enough, they tag you for almost 200 yards rushing the football, 197 to be exact. They averaged 7 yards a carry, and it wasn't just Justin Fields who rushed for 81, and including in there a 43-yard touchdown run on a 4th and 1, in which the front side of the play is dead to rights, pivots and runs all the way back across the field. So, interesting game. Not one that you look at the box score and get the warm and fuzzies for, other than time of possession and turnovers. You won the turnover battle 3-0. So I want to talk about the performance of both sides of the ball and how I think the Dolphins achieved this differently. And it's an early September win, and it's against a team that's winless at 0-4, right? So you keep it for what it is. We're going to enjoy the fact that it's a win. We're going to focus on what can be built on, and we're going to go from there, and we're going to see how the Dolphins do next week against another team that is struggling in some phases in the Carolina Panthers. So with that in mind, offensively, the Dolphins finish with 300 yards of offense, which I don't think is necessarily super indicative of their performance, because they were set up with the turnovers on a couple of shorter fields, but they did have a 96-yard touchdown drive to take a 10-0 lead in this game. They averaged 5.4 yards per play. They averaged 4 yards per carry, 31 rushes for 123 yards. They averaged 7.1 yards per pass attempt. They only passed the ball 25 times. And a lot of that was where you felt the difference for this team. They ran 17 dropbacks of play action passing in the first 3 weeks combined. They called 11 play action passes in week 4 alone. So you go through your self-scouting on your extended break, and it looks like part of the conversation that was had is, look, a lot of the things that we do well and historically have been successful at, we've kind of gotten away from. This felt more like some iterations of 22 and 23 Dolphins offense, not because of the success or how they moved the ball or they scored 27 points, not because of that, but just how they drew up the plays, how they structurally got up to the line of scrimmage. And I think that'll be something that's really interesting to watch for the Dolphins now as they look to move forward without Tyreek Hill. Does that mean more under center run game threats and having 21 personnel and boot action off of that. The Dolphins had a ton of success with the boot game against the Jets. They really didn't respect Tua Tagovailoa's ability to get outside the pocket. And on a number of instances, he's out there fast and he's got time. Now, Tua in his play in particular, we did not turn the ball over. We did have the snap exchange out of the gun with Aaron Brewer, but that was more of a Brewer placement issue on the snap. Tua 17 to 25, 177 yards, 2 touchdowns. Had a couple of nice explosives, right? Like Jalen Waddle has the 25-yard rub route where he stacks down the sideline for 25 yards. Tyreek Hill had a 28-yarder. Julian Hill has a 19-yard catch and run and rumble as well, as that was the third longest pass for the eligibles that caught passes in this game. So I thought Tua played with the most control. And I don't know how much of that is, hey, we're going to get back to familiar territory offensively with how everything fits together and how we're going to use play action passing and if that was a contributing factor or not. I'd like to encourage Tua and remind Tua to slide a little earlier next time after Tyreek Hill goes down. Tua scrambles and slides and kind of takes it. It looked worse from the sideline, like the broadcast angle from the sideline when it first happened versus where the actual impact was when he slid on that play, I thought. But that's in part Tyreek or Tua, you give him credit. Tuck your chin, young man, right? And that way you don't get the whip action. And that was a part of some of the head injuries that Tua has suffered in the past has been controlled through contact with the ground. And I think he did kind of have the ability to control his posture as he goes down with Maui Oga, the linebacker from the Jets, kind of late. And they got flagged for 15 or a personal foul on that play in particular. Devon Achane, Darren Waller, guys that made impacts in this game. And those guys plus Jalen Waddle are going to have to be guys that grow up and step up or elevate their play. It's different junctures of each one of these guys' careers. Waddle's on a second contract. Devon Achane's on a rookie deal. Darren Waller's back from retirement, caught 2 touchdown passes. And the first one was awesome. Elevating, going up above the rim the way that he did, attacking the football. That's a ball skills element that is frankly not existing in the tight end room. And that's what you, in theory, were hoping you were going to find. And to get it on the first touchdown that Darren Waller scores and the second target that he gets, he had an opportunity on a third down to win it across the middle of the field, across the face of a defender, and created a first down in that regard as well. So we'll talk more about the offense and how this fits together moving forward when we get into the Tyreek stuff in segment 3. But I do want to get to the defensive side of the ball and the performance because, man, we got to pick up some pieces here. We're going to get into that on the other side of it. Make sure you guys stick with us. You know the saying, look good, feel good? The problem is that most dress clothes only check one of those 2 boxes. They look sharp but feel stiff, hot, and high maintenance. That's why there's Mizzen and Main. Mizzen and Main makes classic menswear with performance fabric, so it's effortless to look sharp and feel comfortable. They actually invented the performance fabric dress shirt over 10 years ago, and they have perfected it since. I love that you can go from the office to dinner or out on the golf course and still feel comfortable all day long. It's the feel of athletic wear, but the look of professional menswear. Right now, Mizzen and Main is offering listeners 20% off your first purchase at mizzenandmain.com with promo code LOCKEDONNFL20. That's Mizzen, spelled M-I-Z-Z-E-N, and Main, MAIN.com. Promo code LOCKEDONNFL20 for 20% off. If you'd rather shop in person, you can find Mizzen and Main stores in select states. The NFL season is in full swing. FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss to make your game days even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5. If it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. As of last night, during the Dolphins squad show, Panthers-Dolphins not on the board, presumably as a result of the Tyreek Hill injury. So I'll give you an update there when I have one. It makes watching football more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action for yourself. So whether you're a casual fan or love diving into stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better for everyone. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Man, defensively, 7 yards per carry. And the backs had 5.5. And you were fortunate that Braylon Allen goes down in this game the way that he does early on a kick return and only has 4 carries, because I think that only would have further fueled the Jets' ability to really pound you on the ground. Breece Hall has a bunch of chunk runs, 14 attempts, 81 yards for him. So Justin Fields and Breece Hall both go for 81 rushing yards. Fields finishes the day passing 20 of 27 for 226 yards and the touchdown pass to Garrett Wilson, who finishes with 6 receptions for 82 yards and a score on 8 targets. Contained him well enough, I think is probably the way to phrase it. The rest of the targets, it was a coming out party for Mason Taylor in South Florida with his dad in the box, because of course it was. And Mason Taylor showcasing the ability to kind of get loose against the Dolphins' zone coverages. I felt like that was opportunistic for Mason. And I think as Mason continues to build out his game, I would look for him to continue to have those kinds of productions as teams afford it. And when the Jets have this kind of success running the ball, and if you're going to play action off of that, or if Fields is in the lineup, and what you can do to defenders' eyes when you're playing zone, and kind of lose track of a player like Mason, I think that's where his football intelligence already at a very early age for him can show up. Now, the Dolphins, a little undermanned in some spots in this regard, in particular, the nickel spot, where it was kind of the Dolphins came in with 4 active corners, and one of them was Cornell Armstrong, right? it's not an attractive situation to be playing with. And if I was the Dolphins, I'd be kicking around a little bit. I would be. Now, I will say the 2 starters in Rasul Douglas and Jack Jones. Douglas gets tagged on an awesome catch by Garrett Wilson for the touchdown late in that game that kind of was giving me, I'll be honest, I had a little bit of Tennessee Titans PTSD. It's Monday Night Football. You're up 27-13, 3.5 minutes to go. The Jets score a touchdown. They get a 2-point conversion to make it a 6-point game, sets up an onside kick. I mean, it was the Dolphins go 3 and out on the ensuing possession with the lead to give the ball back to the Jets. The only difference was the time, right? The time that was left in the game and how fast it happened. Jake Bailey deserves, and I gave him his love on the squad show last night, which went live on YouTube shortly there after the game ended. I gave him all of his flowers because that punt took a lot of stress that I had for that final Jets possession with 12 seconds left when they punted the ball, pitting them deep the way that they did. That was awesome execution. I think special teams, aside of kickoff coverage, deserves a ton of flowers. But some of this felt like it was compounded by the footing on the field, which felt like it was soft and slick, and guys didn't necessarily anchor well against a physical, dynamic Jets offensive line when it comes to running the ball. But some of this was also just, we're a mess trying to fit the run right now. And I take some solace in knowing that the ways that the Jets test you with Justin Fields and your ability to fit the run, let's be honest, this is not a very impressive football team for all the mental errors that they made and the self-inflicted wounds that they had. But at the same time, that element of the Jets and their offense really only replicatable in a few other spots across the league. Now, you'll get one of them when you play Baltimore, and then obviously you got to play the Jets again. But all things considered, this has to be an area where this group clicks, and it has to click up front. And I think they did a good enough job with the pass rush opportunities to kind of box rush Justin Fields. His big explosive run where he gets outside for the touchdown score from 43 out. You got Matthew Butler and Bradley Chubb on the backside of the play, kind of diving like it's a quarterback sneak, and Fields ends up taking off to the perimeter. And they end up just laying on the ground. And they're still laying on the ground, and Justin Fields doubles back his momentum, and he's running to the opposite sideline. And you could see Chubb's head pick up, and it's like, oh, the play's coming this way. I guess I better get up, right? Like you have to have that pursuit in all phases. And when your backside pursuit on a quarterback run action like that is on the ground, that's how those big plays happen. So I think there's some correctable stuff. I also think there's some execution things that need to get better. It was great to see Zach Sealer show up in the second half with a couple of splash plays. That's the standard for Zach, right? So I'm eager to get into the tape and kind of get into each one of their individual performances and see how they did. But that's next for me today after we finish doing the Clubbed Up episode. So I want to get into Tyreek Hill and the injury, the fallout for the team, and the long-term ramifications, because I've got a lot of people that have a lot of questions, right? And we're going to get into that next here on Locked On Dolphins. Make sure you guys stick with us. Guys, you probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them for yourself. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiit Go Long. Rugiit Go Long is not just another ED pill. It's a total game changer for confidence. It features 2 combined doctor-trusted medications on one dual-action formula, so you can go the distance whenever duty calls. The effects can last up to 36 hours. That's confidence all day, all night, even into the next day. And the process is simple. You connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online, and if prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly right to your front door. If you're ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom, head to Rugiit.com, Rugiet.com, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for 15% off your first order. That's Rugiet.com. Promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Make sure to use our code so they know we sent you. I have done 2 stories this morning on the Tyreek Hill injury, which is a horrific injury. It's ugly. It's just nasty. And it looks on the play in question, his left foot extends as he's going out of bounds, and you could see the divot that it left in the side. So going back to that whole footing thing, it just seems like it's an unfortunate perfect storm where there's somebody on your back and you extend your leg out, and it looks like the cleats really got stuck in the soft side, and it's been reported as a dislocated knee with multiple torn ligaments, and multiple surgeries is potentially on the table for Tyreek Hill. Status for this year, season is over. Status for next year may not be ready for the start of next year either. And Tyreek turns 32 in March, right? It's just a really unfortunate combination of variables. So I would say this first and foremost. When you're in that moment, if you've ever had like a significant injury, your body's kind of in shock, right? And I think for the reaction that Tyreek Hill had, if you're somebody that saw that as him being glad that he doesn't have to play in Miami anymore, or if you think that that's because he thinks he's getting money without having to play, I would strongly encourage you to please stop what you're doing, pause the show, get up, walk outside, touch some grass. Okay. Everybody's unique individual body response to that moment is different. And I, for one, will not judge Tyreek at all for how he reacted to this life-changing event that's happening in front of his team and the world in primetime, right? I'll give him that grace. And I think you should too. And I don't think there was anything malicious about the way that he reacted at all. And I think it's just when you're in shock, you react however you react, right? And you're kind of half not there. So that's a part of it that has kind of bothered me personally. um, after this injury's happened. And you can think of whatever you want of Tyreek Hill individually, but nobody wants to see anybody get hurt in any capacity, let alone something as graphic as that. So um, for the Dolphins, there will be a talent dip at wide receiver. I think that's fair to say, right? This is something the Dolphins have been uniquely exposed to throughout the course of this entire offseason program. Remember, Tyreek was not an active participant in the offseason program because he was recovering from wrist surgery. Tyreek did not really partake in much of training camp because he had the low back, hip pointer, whatever it was, right? He really only was involved for 2 weeks of training camp. I will be curious to see if the under center, play action heavy, heavier personnel trends from this game kind of become the norm. And if that's the case, then I think your beneficiaries of this opportunity is a split of Nick Westbrook, Akine, and a second tight end. Because if you're going to be heavier and you're going to be under center, you want to sell the presence of the run much more. I think that's the best way for Miami to survive this is for Mike McDaniel to get back to his roots, kind of get to some of the traditional wide zone under center boot action stuff, which is stuff the Dolphins can run. And don't let the insiders tell you that the Dolphins can't run that because of Tua's durability issues, because they ran that for years, right? That's just not factually true. Now, trying to evolve and build off of that has been a problem. And I think this is going to force you with some of the gravitational pull that Tyreek has for targets in the passing game being gone. I think this is some Ollie Gordon. This is some Darren Waller. This is some Malik Washington. This is some Nick Westbrook Akine. And this is some Jalen Waddle. And this is some Devon. Like everybody collectively is going to see more opportunities because you don't just give this to one guy. You don't. But I think what that can do for Miami, and this has been kind of the thought going back to in the spring when we were having conversations of trading Tyreek Hill potentially, was, hey, for the balance of your offense, what can that look like? We're going to have to find out now. Your hand has been forced. You resisted trading Tyreek Hill. You kept him on the roster. You wanted to make it work. 3.5 games into the season, Tyreek Hill's season is unfortunately over, but you have 13 more games left to play. And it's a good look at who you have, who's ready to grow up, who's ready to be an alpha, who's ready to be the featured player, and who's not. And it's the same thing for me, right? You're a team in a youth movement, and I want to know what guys are ready for what, and I want to evaluate them in those opportunities. And the writing's always been on the wall that Tyreek Hill this year was probably going to be his last year in Miami because of the financial implications of his contract. The biggest question I have with Tyreek Hill and his contract right now, the Dolphins are going to save about $1.3 million in per game active bonuses this year. It was 1.8 in total. Ends up being about $100,000 per game that he does not dress that the Dolphins will not have to pay out in bonuses. So they're going to save some cash and cap in that regard. But also, the big question I have, and the Dolphins did this with Tyreek Hill or with Tua Tagovailoa. They gave a big contract extension out, and they bought an insurance policy to recoup in the event of injuries for Tua's contract. The 49ers lost Nick Bosa earlier this season. It's been reported they're going to get $7 million in cap reimbursements in 2026 for cashing in on an insurance policy on his contract. So we know the Dolphins have done that with Tua's contract. That's been reported by Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk. We know that similar players that are non-quarterbacks in similar price points like Nick Bosa have insurance policies as well. That, for me, is the big question for the Tyreek contract. No, there's no guarantees on his 2026 money. There's no injury guarantees. There's no fully guaranteed. It's $11 million guarantees on the third day of the league year in March. He's doing a $5 million roster bonus. He's not going to be on the roster. It's unfortunate. He's going to get his compensation this year. If the Dolphins have an insurance policy, they can get kickback from that, in which case it would be reimbursed against their cap. That's what we need to find out right now from an economic standpoint, because I know a lot of people have questions about it. And that's the unfortunate business side of this, is a lot of people are going to have that question. So that's what I'm hoping to find out in the days ahead with some clarity. Kyle Krabs, keep it locked in here on Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day. Appreciate you guys as always checking the show. Make it a great rest of your day. Club Dub is in the books with a somber note due to the Tyreek Hill injury. We will be back to talk about the game tape on tomorrow's episode of the show, reacting to all the things that I saw when I grind through the tape. I hope to see you then.